There is a dam in North Carolina that is sinking, not in a model, not in a projection. Right now, today, satellites in orbit are measuring the ground beneath the Roanoke Rapids Dam give way, millimeter by millimeter, in a way that human inspectors standing right on top of it could never see. That is not a worst-case scenario. That is a documented reading from a new technology that is exposing a truth a lot of people do not want to see. The concrete looks fine. The checklists are signed. But deep inside, the structure is failing. What does it feel like to learn that a structure holding back a river is secretly breaking apart from the inside out? Let us know in the comments below. And here is the part that turns this from one sinking dam into a national crisis. Roanoke Rapids is not an anomaly. It is a warning. It is proof that thousands of our dams, the ones we drive over, fish in, and live beneath, are hiding catastrophic failures. We have built our towns and our lives in the shadow of 92,000 dams. We trusted they were permanent. We were wrong. A lot of people watch our investigations and forget to subscribe. Don't be one of them. The things we cover are too important to miss. If you get any value from this, click that red button now. It's what lets us keep sounding these alarms. Let's begin. The final number is 4,000. 4,000 dams across the United States officially rated in poor or unsatisfactory condition. That is not an estimate from a fringe activist group. That number is pulled directly from the databases of the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. These are the dams that regulators already know are compromised. The ones with visible cracks, with documented seepage, with operational components that no longer work. 4,000 ticking clocks. And that is just the beginning of the problem. Because the category that truly matters is not a dam's condition, but its location. It's called high hazard potential. That is a cold, bureaucratic term for a very simple reality. It means if that dam fails, people die. It has nothing to do with the dam's age or structural integrity. A brand new dam built just upstream from a housing development is immediately classified as high hazard. The designation is a measure of consequence, a statement of who is in the flood path. Right now, today, there are 16,746 high hazard potential dams in the United States. And here's the number that should stop you cold. As of this year, 2,522 of them, 2,522 of these dams with human lives in their crosshairs are confirmed to be in poor or unsatisfactory condition. This isn't a risk, it's a certainty, a slow motion, nationwide structural failure that has already begun. In March of 2026, the American Society of Civil Engineers, the ASCE, released its updated infrastructure report card. They gave the nation's dams a D+. A D+, not a passing grade, not even a C. A grade that in any other context would signal total failure. But we've accepted it for the infrastructure that holds back billions of tons of water from our homes and our cities. We are living on a D+ foundation, and that foundation is starting to crumble. On May 19, 2020, the residents of Gladwin and Midland counties in Michigan learned what a D+ looks like in person. The Edenville Dam was an earthen embankment structure built in 1924. For nearly a century, it held back Wixom Lake, a placid centerpiece for a quiet, rural community. It was privately owned, passed from company to company over the decades like a hot potato of deferred maintenance. And for decades, it held, until it didn't. After days of unprecedented rainfall, water levels surged. The river swelled beyond anything the 96-year-old dam was designed to contain. Water began to pour over the top of the earthen wall. Earthen dams are not like concrete dams. They are not designed to be overtopped. When water flows over packed earth, it erodes it. Fast. Residents downstream heard a sound they described as a freight train. Then the sirens began. A wall of water, mud, and debris from the completely disintegrated Edenville Dam surged down the Tittabawassee River. It was a torrent of unimaginable force, and it was headed directly for the next dam downstream, the Sanford Dam. The Sanford Dam, also an earthen embankment, stood no chance. Overwhelmed by the floodwaters from its upstream neighbor, it too failed catastrophically. The result was a biblical deluge that forced 11,000 people to evacuate their homes with minutes of warning. The city of Midland, a regional hub, was submerged under 9 feet of water. The damage was estimated at over $200 million. 2 dams gone in a matter of hours. A region devastated. This was not a surprise act of God. It was a failure of ownership, of regulation, and of time. The private company that owned the dam had a long history of safety violations. Regulators knew it was a problem, but knowing and acting are 2 different things. And when the rain finally came, knowing wasn't enough. The arithmetic of water and gravity took over. If a dam near you failed tonight, what would the first warning be? A siren? A text message? Or the sound of water? Tell us in the comments. What happened in Michigan revealed a poison pill hidden inside America's infrastructure crisis. The ownership trap. The federal government, the entity you might think is responsible for these massive structures, owns a tiny fraction of them. Just 4%. A staggering 70% of the 92,000 dams in this country are privately owned. Who are these private owners? They are not all massive utility conglomerates. They are often farmers, small business owners, and in thousands of cases, they are homeowners associations. Imagine buying your dream home on a beautiful man-made lake, built as part of a 1970s suburban development. You pay your HOA dues, you enjoy the scenery, and you never once think about the packed earth dam at the end of the lake that makes the whole thing possible. Then, a letter arrives from the state's dam safety office. The dam, built 50 years ago with a 50-year design life, is now classified as high hazard because your neighborhood was built downstream from it. It needs a $5 million upgrade to its spillway to meet modern safety standards. The HOA, your HOA, is legally responsible for the bill. A few hundred homeowners are suddenly on the hook for a multi-million-dollar infrastructure project they didn't even know they owned. This is the HOA nightmare, and it's playing out in communities all across the country. HOAs go bankrupt. Residents face crippling special assessments, and in many cases, the only affordable solution is to breach the dam intentionally and let the lake drain away, destroying property values and the very ecosystem the community was built around. They bought a home on a lake. They ended up owning a failing piece of industrial equipment. The problem has a name engineers use: hazard creep. When many of these dams were built in the 1950s and 60s, they were in the middle of nowhere. A failure meant flooding a pasture. They were designated low hazard. But over the next half-century, the cities expanded. Suburbs sprawled outward, pushing new housing developments and strip malls right into the historic floodplains below these old, forgotten dams. The dam didn't move. The target did. Suddenly, that low-hazard farm dam is now a high-hazard suburban dam, looming over thousands of people. The risk profile changed completely, but the 60-year-old dam didn't. It just got older. If you know someone living near an old lake, especially one in a suburban area, share this video with them. Give it a like so this warning reaches more people who might be living downstream without even knowing it. This isn't just a documentary. It's a safety briefing for a crisis most people don't see coming. The average age of a dam in the United States is now somewhere between 61 and 65 years old. The problem is, most of them were designed and built with an intended engineering lifespan of just 50 years. We are, on average, more than a decade past the expiration date. We are living on borrowed time, coasting on the inertia of concrete and steel poured by our grandparents. And the margin for error is shrinking every year. On June 24th, 2024, the residents of Blue Earth County, Minnesota, watched that margin disappear entirely. Historic, relentless rainfall sent the Blue Earth River into a furious flood. The target was the Rapidan Dam, a concrete gravity dam built in 1910, 114 years old. But the dam didn't break. Not at first. Something stranger and more terrifying happened. The sheer volume of water, a flow rate the original builders could have never conceived, overwhelmed the structure. The river, blocked by a dam that was now too small to contain it, simply decided to go around. It smashed into the western riverbank, the earthen abutment next to the concrete spillway, and began to tear it to pieces. Video from that day is apocalyptic. You can watch as the river carves a new channel for itself out of the Minnesota soil, bypassing the 114-year-old dam entirely. An entire house, perched on that riverbank, slides into the churning brown torrent and is swallowed whole. Gone. The dam itself was left standing, an obsolete monument in the middle of a river that had just rerouted itself through raw earth. The Rapidan Dam wasn't a failure of concrete. It was a failure of imagination. It was a 1910 structure facing a 2024 climate reality. And it proves that failure doesn't always look like a catastrophic breach. Sometimes, failure looks like the laws of physics, simply rendering our outdated designs irrelevant. The river no longer fits the container we built for it. This is the new variable that is breaking the original math of dam safety. A professor emeritus at the University of Michigan, Richard Rood, studies climate change. After the 2020 Michigan failures, he warned that the massive rainfall events overwhelming these structures should not be viewed as freak accidents. His words were a warning. This needs to be considered not the worst we can experience. This needs to be considered as typical of the future. The engineers who designed these dams in the 1960s used historical weather data to calculate the size of their spillways. They built them to handle what was then considered a 100-year storm. But those climate patterns are gone. The 100-year storms are now happening every decade, sometimes more often. The rain is literally falling harder and faster than the concrete was ever designed to shed. The statistics on failure rates confirm this. It is not an opinion. It is a documented spike. Between 1994 and 2003, the United States saw an average of 3 dam failures or emergency interventions per year. 3. A manageable, almost statistical background noise. Between 2014 and 2023, that number exploded to 76 incidents per year. 76. An increase of over 2,500%. The system is flashing red. The dams are telling us, in the only language they have, that they cannot handle the new reality. And remember the dam in North Carolina? The one that satellites show is sinking? That discovery is the key to understanding the next phase of this crisis. Because the most dangerous failures are the ones you can't see. In late 2025, a team of scientists at Virginia Tech, led by geoscientist Dr. Mohammad Karami and his colleague Dr. Manucher Shirzeh, presented a breakthrough at the American Geophysical Union's annual meeting. They had pioneered a new way to inspect dams, not with eyes on the ground, but with radar from space. The technique is called Interferometric Synthetic Aperture Radar, or INSAR. It is profoundly clever. A satellite passes over a dam and bounces a radar signal off of it, creating a precise topographical map of the structure and the ground around it. Then it passes over again, days or weeks later, and takes another snapshot. By comparing the two images, the scientists can detect tiny, millimeter-scale changes in elevation. They can see if a structure is sinking, bulging, or shifting. I know we mentioned it, but it's just that important. If you haven't subscribed yet, please take 1 second and do it now. The algorithm is not designed to show you this kind of urgent, independent investigation twice. Clicking that button ensures you stay informed. When the Virginia Tech team aimed this technology at dams across the country, what they found was chilling. They focused on the Roanoke Rapids Dam in North Carolina, a 72-foot tall hydropower dam. Visually, it looked fine. It passed its inspections. But the INSAR data told a different story. The satellite showed that sections of the dam were actively sinking into the ground. Critically, the sinking was not uniform. Different parts of the dam were settling at different rates. This is called differential settlement, and it's an engineer's nightmare. When one part of a rigid concrete structure sinks faster than another, it creates immense internal stress. It creates invisible shear forces that can lead to deep structural cracks that are not visible on the surface. You can have an inspector walk the length of the dam, check every visible joint, and sign off that everything is secure. While deep within the concrete, a crack is propagating, waiting for the right pressure, the right vibration, the right flood event to fail. Dr. Karami was blunt about the implications. Human inspectors are essential, but they can only see the surface. They can't see the silent internal degradation. The satellite can. The data proves some of these dams are actively deforming. They are slowly, quietly breaking from the ground up. The study revealed what many engineers had long suspected, that for a significant number of our aging dams, the most dangerous threat is not what you can see. It is what you can't. And the cause of much of this risk is not some exotic geological force. It is something far more mundane. Dr. Karami stated that almost 40 to 50% is something that is in our hands. What he meant was a chronic, systemic, nationwide lack of basic maintenance. We built 92,000 dams, and then, for a huge number of them, we walked away. We deferred the maintenance. We ignored the small problems until they became big problems, and we hoped for the best. The bill for that hope is now coming due. The Association of State Dam Safety Officials, or ASDSO, has been tracking this for decades. Their executive director, Lori C. Spraggins, has spent her career trying to get lawmakers to pay attention. The ASDSO estimates that the total cost to rehabilitate all of the nation's aging dams is now over $165.2 billion. That is not a typo. $165.2 billion. To fix just the most critical category, the non-federal, high-hazard potential dams that are known to be in poor or unsatisfactory condition, would cost over $70 billion alone. To put that number in perspective, it is more than the entire annual budget for the U.S. Department of Homeland Security. And nobody has the money. The federal government provides some grant money through FEMA's National Dam Safety Program, but it is a drop in the ocean compared to the scale of the need. State budgets are stretched thin, and the private owners, the HOAs and farmers, are often simply trapped. They cannot afford the multi-million-dollar repairs, but they also can't afford the legal liability of a failure. So they do nothing. The dam gets another year older. The cracks get a little bit deeper. The risk compounds in silence. Del Shannon, a senior engineer and former president of the United States Society on Dams, put it plainly. Something like this could happen, and it has happened all over the country. It requires costly maintenance to keep decades of wear and tear from degrading dams, and resources to fix problems are often scarce. Scarce is an understatement. For the 2,522 high-hazard dams in poor condition, the resources are functionally non-existent. This is not a new problem. This is an old American story. We have known the price of ignoring dams for more than a century. We just choose to forget. On May 31st, 1889, the South Fork Dam, a poorly maintained earthen dam high in the hills above Johnstown, Pennsylvania, gave way after days of extreme rainfall. It was owned by a private hunting and fishing club for the wealthy elite of Pittsburgh. They had performed shoddy repairs and failed to maintain the structure for years. When it failed, it unleashed 20 million tons of water from Lake Conemaugh in a single, catastrophic wave. The wall of water was said to be 40 feet high, moving at 40 miles per hour, carrying debris and houses and trees with it. It obliterated everything in its path. When it slammed into the city of Johnstown, it killed 2,209 people. It remains the deadliest dam failure in American history. May 31st is now recognized as National Dam Safety Awareness Day to commemorate the tragedy. A day to remember the cost of neglect. We don't remember. On March 14th, 2006, the Ka Loko Dam on the island of Kauai, Hawaii, catastrophically failed after heavy rain. It was, like the South Fork Dam, an old earthen structure, and it was privately owned. An investigation later found the owner had performed unpermitted modifications and that the dam had not been inspected by the state in years. The breach released 400 million gallons of water, a torrent that swept away homes and killed 7 people as they slept, including a pregnant woman, a private dam, deferred maintenance, a deadly failure. The Johnstown pattern, repeating itself over a century later. All right, I promise this is the last time. For a few minutes anyway. But seriously, click subscribe. We have a goal to reach as many people as possible with this information, and every single subscription helps us break through the noise of cat videos and dance trends. It genuinely allows us to focus on stories like this. It makes a difference. The legal fallout from these disasters only makes the future look more bleak. After the 2020 Edenville and Sanford Dam failures in Michigan, a massive lawsuit was filed against the state. The victims argued that the state's regulators were negligent, that they knew the dam was a hazard, and failed to act decisively enough to prevent the collapse. In April of 2026, the Michigan Court of Claims delivered a landmark ruling. The state, they said, was not legally responsible for the damages. The court placed the blame squarely on the private owner of the dam and on the extreme weather. It was a ruling that sent a shockwave through the dam safety community. It created a powerful precedent that effectively shields government entities from liability, even when their regulatory oversight is questioned. It means that when the next privately owned dam fails, the victims will likely have nowhere to turn for compensation but the bankrupt owner of the dam itself. There is no failsafe. There is no backstop. The homeowner with $1 million judgment is on their own. So we have a system where thousands of dams are past their expiration date. They are being assaulted by a climate they weren't designed for. A significant number are owned by people who cannot afford to fix them. Our best inspection methods are apparently blind to internal decay. And our legal system is increasingly letting the entities with the most power off the hook. It is a perfect storm of structural decay, financial paralysis, and regulatory loopholes. Look again at the numbers. 92,000 dams. An average age of 61 to 65 years on a 50-year design life. Over 16,700 of them are high hazard, meaning their failure causes loss of life. Of those, 2,522 are already known to be in poor or unsatisfactory condition. The rate of failures and near failures has jumped from 3 per year to 76 per year. This is not a projection. This is not a worst-case scenario. This is the measured, documented reality of a nationwide system in a state of accelerating decay. Each of those 2,522 failing, high-hazard dams is a potential Johnstown, a potential Edenville, a potential Ka Loko. The satellite in orbit continues its path, passing over the Roanoke Rapids Dam again and again. Its radar penetrates the clouds and the concrete, measuring the silent shift of the ground. Millimeter by millimeter, it keeps a record of a failure that hasn't happened yet. It is watching a clock that is ticking down. And that dam is just one of thousands. The question is not if the next Edenville will happen. The math on that is already settled. The question is, which of the 4,000 will it be? And when you look at a map of those dams, a map dotted with red flags in every state, from coast to coast,